Evening. He's the Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji, who just yesterday, he initiated what's known as a plea bargain. And we want to know more about it. So, welcome, DPP. Good to see you.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you, Jeff.
Plea bargaining.
Yep.
What does that mean? What is it about?
Well, it's an alternative mechanism to prosecution. Usually, it's a faster way of resolving matters before court and finding a more amenable solution to whatever problems that we're faced with or crime.
Yeah.
So it's an easier option. Instead of having to go through the whole trial system, you can sit down, enter into an agreement, and negotiate sometimes for a plea of, say, guilty, for example.
Critics would say, look, it looks like Noordin Haji is surrendering. You're losing the fight against the people who you are prosecuting or trying to prosecute.
No, not necessarily. And that is not the case. It's actually the opposite. When you enter into a plea bargaining, you're actually giving up because you know that you're likely to be convicted. So instead of going through that process, instead of being ending up with, say, 10, 15 years, once you go into a plea bargaining, the term of sentence will be reduced, one. Secondly, if it's, for example, fraud, you will have to restitute and pay and compensate for the loss. And in essence, shorten the trial process and guarantee yourself a shorter period of sentence, for example. Yeah.
Who does this apply to, DPP? Who does this apply to? Is this just the high and mighty? Or?
No. It applies to everybody. Actually, it is there to benefit the not mighty individuals. We've done a lot of, research. We found that the poor are the ones who actually lose in the criminal justice system because they can't afford to pay fines, for example. They can't afford to get a lawyer. So plea bargaining system will give them an option to come in and say, I can't afford this, but I plea and say that I was involved in the crime. I accept this. Can we do a much faster?
Okay, so for instance,
but in addition to that, we've also come with diversion. So where you have a chicken thief, for example, right. The example that is always used, that it's much easier to prosecute a chicken thief than a graft, for example, those who are involved in graft. And in the diversion process, we can sit down, agree, I've stolen one chicken. Why do you need to go through? Can you agree with the person that you stole the chicken from? Do some community service or go and return it. Another good example is a drug addict who's not a peddler, but an addict. Do we have to necessarily prosecute them, or can we find a rehab where they can go and go through rehabilitation process, monitor it, instead of prosecuting?
Yeah, DPP, that's treading on some pretty thin ice. For instance, what about rapists and murderers? What if they...
Sexual offenses is a no-go area.
Murderers?
Murderers,
yes, I killed him. I'm guilty. I want to take a plea.
It will depend on what they come up with. Of course, the person has to serve sentence, and we can still enter into a plea agreement, but there will be stringent terms and conditions for them to enter into a plea agreement.
Some people may be asking, is this open to
we
abuse?
Of course, it is going to be open to abuse, but we are trying to put a system that has integrity, that will ensure prosecutors and complainants and all those who are involved, stakeholders, do not abuse the system. So we are really trying to put very stringent measures in place.
Okay, so someone steals 10 billion shillings. And he says, look, I'm guilty. Are you going to freeze those assets? Are you going to recover those assets?
Oh,
if you can't recover them? What if they...
So the beauty of the plea agreement is, for example, we will ask them to tell us where all the assets are, where all the money is.
And if they say, I've spent it?
Well, they'll have to serve a sentence. Yeah, there's no two-way. Plea bargaining agreement is not going to be an issue where you're going to cut deals so that you're off the hook. No way. The first thing, especially in corruption cases, the first thing is we want our monies back, public funds. And then we can now discuss about sentence. And if it's sentencing, they still have to serve the term. There's no way they're going to get off the hook.
Okay, did you initiate this because you agree that the courts are clogged or backlogged?
Yes, that's one of the reasons. But secondly, it's also very expensive. The criminal justice system is extremely expensive for both the government and those who are involved in the processes. And we want to see how best we can reduce by unclogging the system, by reducing the costs that go, for example, in prison, that goes towards prosecuting the process itself. Sometimes it takes 10 years, 15 years, like the Golden Bag cases. Yeah. It's quite expensive. And it'll also reduce our cost for investigations. So, for example, it's also very expensive for us to deploy investigators to go out there and trace where the funds are and where the money is. So if somebody can come and enter into a plea bargaining, that immediately cuts all the costs that are borne by the government.
Yeah. Bottom line, DPP, you and your triumvirate of DCI and EACC, are you winning the war against corruption?
Well, we're making inroads. I can't say that we are winning the war. I'm being very frank here. But we're making a lot of inroads. And we have set foundation for greater results and better results. You will see that increasingly the number of cases going to court have decreased, but it's because we are now concentrating on quality and not quantity. For a long time, the concentration has been on quantity of cases that don't have quality. Yeah.
Bottom line, you're making less arrests, especially high-profile ones.
But I've just explained why. Because we are taking this very seriously. We don't want to take cases that, one, are weak, and two, don't have the desirable results. And what are the desirable results? In the end, that we are able to deter, and we are able to prosecute successfully. We are able to get into plea bargaining agreements because we have overwhelming evidence that forces the individuals to come in and say, hey, I did this. Yeah. This is the money. You can have it back. Instead of 15 years, let me serve 7 years.
Okay. Here's an example for you. Governor of Kiambu County.
Yeah.
Still under investigation.
Yeah.
If he wakes up tomorrow and says, guys, I did it.
Yeah.
What happens to him?
I mean, we'll have to hear him out. But we have our minimum requirements. One is that the money has to be returned 3 times. 3 times of what was stolen. And that's provided in a SECA. 2, we'll expect him to serve not less than 6 months. You know what that means? He can't be in office. And that is the minimum that we will require. He will end up not being in office because he'll have served 6 and more, and he'll have paid 3 times of what is stolen.
And this doesn't apply just to the high and mighty, like you said. I mean, the chicken thief, the ordinary Monanchi, they too can plea bargain.
Of course, they can both plea bargaining, enter into plea bargaining agreements, or opt to go through diversion, which is another option that we have. Yeah.
You can meet some hurdles along the way. There's going to be many hurdles.
Of course, there's going to be a lot of hurdles, but we can't stop because we anticipate hurdles. We must try, and we'll try and put as much stringent measures in place. We've asked the civil society to participate in this, to oversight. We've asked the media to also oversight, ensure that it works. And every citizen, including prosecutors and investigators and the judges themselves, who will be part of the plea agreements.
Yeah. Before I let you go, DPP, what about those who destroy evidence, those who delay investigations in their own ways? What happens to them?
I mean, we'll finish the investigations. Where there's hurdles, we have options to charge them for obstruction. So they will have to go through the system. And they will have to be charged eventually once we have the evidence.
Yeah. You still have the same energy you had when you first started, because you seem to have run a bit out of steam. Maybe that's just me.
Sorry?
You've run a bit out of steam.
No, we've not. We have several cases before court. I remember when I was sitting here once, Mohammed Hussein asked me if I'm biting too much. You know, I have to bite what I can. We don't have many prosecutors. The courts themselves are clogged. It's also slow. We don't have enough judges there. But again, we're involving ourselves in quality investigations that takes time. We're investing in tracing the monies and the funds, especially the cases that we still have in court, because we want to be able to get the money and bring that to Mwananchi. Yeah, it's just not going to be just prosecution for the sake of incarcerating them. We want our funds back.
You've ruffled a lot of feathers in your time, DPP. I asked you this once before, and I'll ask you again. Do you fear for your life?
No, I don't, for one reason. Wherever I go, I'm encouraged by Kenyans, and I believe that my angels and my guardians are Kenyans, and I would not ask for anything more, and I'm happy with that. So if it's my time, it's my time. But no, I'm not scared. Yeah.
DPP Noordin Haji, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.